A very good morning to all of you, and welcome to this unique seminar, I would say. It's a great pleasure to have Dr. Srikanta, collaborator and a very good friend. I still remember visiting him in his clinic in October last year. To be precise, it was as per what he says, an auspicious day, Mahalaya Amavasya, is when we went there along with Dr. Krishnaswamy and Vinay. And you would typically think that doctors will have no time for talking about research. We went there at 10:30 or so in the morning, and we left that place at 3 p.m. Right? It was an amazing discussion that we had on that day, and he forced us to have lunch there as well, the lunch that he had brought from his home. What I can say to introduce him here is that he is a physician scientist par excellence. Right? He had a very exceptional and unusual research and professional journey in the last 4-5 decades. Got his MBBS from Bangalore Medical College, did his post-graduation in AIIMS about 40 years ago. Just couple of months ago, we had a workshop with Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, lot of institutes, trying to see how we can have a collaborative research. There is no research in medical schools, right? All the doctors are busy with treatment while they're doing extremely well, but they don't do research. But I must tell you, 40 years ago, the work that he did at AIIMS as a part of his thesis was published in New England Journal of Medicine back then, right? Which is one of the greatest achievement. And then subsequently he went to Duke, and he was at Harvard, was a faculty at Harvard, spent several years there, did some fundamental discoveries related to beta cells and a lot of things related to type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And then he decided to come back to India. I must also tell you that there is a very unique title that he has. While he was in Boston, he also got introduced to Ramakrishna Mission. Okay, perhaps that's one of the reasons why he decided to come back to India, among various other things. He came back to AIIMS, taught in AIIMS, and was also a professor and head of the department of postgraduate PGI, Lucknow. He spent there a few years. Came back to Bangalore, and Dr. Krishnaswamy has very, very interesting story about how Dr. Srikanta approached Dr. Krishnaswamy when he was medical director of Malya Hospital. And just to put one sentence that Dr. Krishnaswamy tells me is that he was so busy he couldn't even talk to Dr. Srikanta. He asked Srikanta to leave his resume on his table, and after 2-3 hours when he had time, he starts going through his resume, and he says, I was astounded to look at the kind of publications, the kind of research that he had done. And he immediately calls Srikanta and says, come back and start working here from tomorrow. Okay. But now he has left all that. He has left all that corporate medical hospitals, and he has been running his trust, Samatvam Diabetes Center, for last several years. And he really does his medicine for sort of reaching out to the poor, and that has been his dream right now. And I must tell you that it has been a phenomenal journey collaborating with him in the last few months, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Srikanta. Please.
Hello, hello. It's okay? Thank you, thank you. Namaste, respected teachers, colleagues and friends, beginning with Professor P.R.K. and Navakant Bhatt. I dedicate this talk to one of the very, very special human beings I have come across in my life. That young boy is called Shri Vinay Chauhan, Dr. Vinay Chauhan, I heard he will become soon, and wish him the best of health for 100+ years, and perhaps definitely a Nobel Prize, preferably from Indian one from Narendra Modi ji. Okay. Can we turn off this light or? Okay, no problem. If it is comfortable, I have no problem. Okay. Beauty to blemish, people call it basic science, and blemish to beauty, we call it clinical science. You look at nature and try to help the society by disease or any other thing. We look at diseases on the way we admire the nature. Several years ago, this professor commented, when nature poses the question, they call it basic science. When the user asks the question, they call it applied science. And with a lot of trepidation, I'm coming here. I told Navakant, my first visit was in 1971. I was 14 and a half to appear for the National Science Talent Search Scheme. I had to present my first research project on nitrogen fixation and rhizobium in one of the buildings. It was very trepidation to sit in front of IAC professor. This is my second visit. Says, okay, the story is about islet beta cells, life, death, and immortality. The journey began. I'll try to make it as much basic as possible, but clinical science unavoidable. The journey began in '74. The story is that of museum specimens and collectible items. I was a medical student standing in Vanivilas Hospital with a batch of second-year students. The doyen, Professor Benakappa, was asking the little boy Shivananja sitting on the bed, what are your problems in Kannada? I understand many of you may not know Kannada. Out blurted this boy, polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, without even knowing what was these terms. This child had something called juvenile diabetes, where all the beta cells of the pancreas are dead and gone. They wrote in the introduction, I think I will challenge, there is no cell which God has created more smarter, more beautiful, more socially relevant than the beta cells, even stronger than the neurons, etc. So beta cells are dead and gone, and if they don't take insulin for a day or two, these children are dead. It's insulin dependent diabetes, it is oxygen. There were museum specimens donated to the hospital, you hardly found anybody. 10 years later, when I was visiting my parents from US, I entered the same hospital and asked the nurse, how is Mr. Shivananja? She told me the new medical director threw the child out of the hospital and the kid died silently in the village few years later. This was the story of the disease in the 70s. Things have changed for the better. So the syllabus for today is very briefly about the life of the beta cells, birth and functions, dysfunction and death of the beta cells. We will take three models, type 1 which is a homicide, type 2 which is a suicide. Monogenic diabetes, extremely interesting though rare. We'll talk few about the immortality to the beta cells, the two ways, either you can prevent their death by immunotherapy and vaccination or artificial pancreas, bioengineering the beta cells. Finally, words about God versus man. Now briefly about the life of the beta cell, the birth and the functions. Predetermined cells, neuroendocrine cells from the endoderm enter the dorsal and the ventral pancreatic bud, scatter themselves into about 2 million islands of Langerhans, and they differentiate through a progressive step, first to become the alpha cell which makes glucagon, then it differentiates into the beta cell in the core, alpha in the periphery. They have what are known as endocrine, paracrine, and autocrine functions, and they have a major role in human regulation. There is a continuous B cell formation or neogenesis and B cell death or apoptosis, and the balance between the two gives the beta cell mass. It is a story of Punarapi Jananam and Punarapi Maranam. It continues. This is a simple cartoon of the beta cell where glucose enters the beta cell through glucose transporter, phosphorylated by the enzyme glucokinase to the glucose 6-phosphatase. Glucokinase is the so-called glucose sensor. Then ATP, it closes the potassium channel. It is part of a 8-member unit potassium channel and the sulfonylurea receptor. Sulfonylurea is the cheapest diabetes medicine, 20 or 30 paisa for long. This closure of the channel leads to membrane depolarization, calcium influx, and then secretion of insulin. Conceptually, you can consider that it has three parts: beta cell, a glucose sensor, and an insulin factory. In between, for simple term, we call it beta cell brain. This is highly simplified. Glucose sensor, beta cell brain, and the insulin factory. Now, few words about the dysfunction and the death of the beta cells. We'll take the models. First is the story of type 1 diabetes, which has been called by one of the people as homicide. In type 1 insulin-dependent diabetes, the beta cells are completely innocent. They are totally not at fault. The immune system goes awry and attacks loss of self-tolerance. This is called inflammation insulitis. When the beta cells are selectively dead and gone, it doesn't touch the alpha cells, you get insulin-dependent diabetes. One of the hallmarks that it was an autoimmune disease, perhaps it is the most prototype autoimmune disease, and the person who cures this disease is definitely in line for the 7th Nobel Prize in the field. It was discovered in '74, and my Gurudev, who is the Mahatma Gandhi in this field, in this country, Professor Ahuja, entrusted me, and we were the second or the third group in the world to make this assay for islet cell antibodies. That paper which he referred won me a fellowship at Duke and Harvard. Otherwise, we are almost untouchables doctors. And I got my new mentor, Professor Stuart Solner. He is perhaps the most clinical islet cell physiologist in the world. This is my earlier days before struggles and senility set in. The next 4 years led to serendipitously lot of discoveries, and we summarized it in a review. Assays for these islet cell antibodies have facilitated the investigation and understanding of several facets of the pathogenesis of autoimmune diabetes and beta cell destruction. Their application have begun to extend into clinical practice and have opened new avenues for early preclinical prediction and preventive prophylaxis. Can we eradicate this disease? 1980s. Previously, the children like Shivananja, I told you, they come acutely with weight loss, excess urination. They are diagnosed as in India, most of them die. Those who are lucky, they are diagnosed, they are put on insulin. So it was an acute disease. As I will show you, this is considered one of the turning points. We showed it is not an acute disease. It is a very slow disease. Behind the tip, there is a big iceberg. There is a slow autoimmune beta cell destruction over 5 to 10 years. Only when 90% of the beta cells are dead and gone, you develop diabetes. So we coined the term pre-type 1 diabetes, and this gave a window of time to scientists to try to prevent this disease. How this story came, this is clinical science. Professor Stuart Solner, he's a physician scientist. He would study, Jocelyn is called the Mecca for diabetes, it's a part of Harvard. When there are twins and triplets of diabetes, in type 1 diabetes, if you have monozygotic twins, genetically identical, only 50% develop diabetes. Other 50% of the twins escape diabetes. That means genes themselves are not enough, you need an environmental factor. So this guy was interested in only the non-diabetic twin. The diabetic twin will go to doctors and take insulin. The non-diabetic twin walks to the research floor and gets studied every 3 months. The kid is normal, but the parents bring he wanted to find out a metabolic marker where he could predict this kid is going to develop diabetes after 3, 4, 10 years. 30 years of his research yielded nothing. So on one breakfast morning when I entered, I told he had kept all the serum samples of he used to challenge the beta cells with glucose, arginine, glucagon, collect samples and store it in the freezer. The same nurse and the same laboratory technician, 30-year samples in a walk-in deep freezer. On that breakfast morning, I requested Solner, the Guruji, I have this little made in India assay. Will you share with me your thousands of samples? So he coded, mixed and blinded. And the end result, I remember the day, the Eureka day, when I announced the results, he found out that this assay could pick up each and every child which was destined to develop diabetes 5 to 10 years later. This is a triplet, identical. This is the insulin secretion. This is from 73 onwards, retrospective. His insulin secretion was very high. Whereas this triplet, had antibody positivity. The blood sugars are all normal, slowly destroyed the beta cells, and after about 5 to 6 years developed insulin dependent diabetes. God gives you everything in plenty. You can remove 90% of your pancreas, still you will not be diabetic. Only when you destroy the 90%, you can remove one kidney and 2/3 of the other kidney, you will be normal. That is God's grace. So then only they develop diabetes. This is the current model. Based on this, the model which is present in all books, that there is a genetic predisposition since birth, some environmental factors trigger, you get an autoimmune reaction, the beta cells are progressively destroyed. When 90% are destroyed, you come to the doctor. Otherwise, you don't come to the doctor. So these are the various steps. I'll tell you about this story also. Same thing happened around the same time, the recurrent autoimmunity. If a child develops type 1 diabetes, the beta cells are dead and gone. The antibodies disappear, most of them, within few years. There was one guy called David Sutherland in Minneapolis. He's the world #1 authority in pancreas transplant. He started doing transplant again between monozygotic twins, identical twin. One child has diabetes, the brother or sister doesn't have diabetes. The diabetic kid develops kidney failure and diabetes. So he puts the kidney from the sister or brother, and a year later he puts the pancreas, half the pancreas, he donates. What he found, as soon as he put the pancreas, diabetes is cured. But this time, within 3 to 4 months, they get diabetes again. So he called us in Boston, and we checked the samples. So here is after 30 years, the twin gets a transplant, identical. Identical twins should not reject. You don't need immunosuppression. They mount a rapid immune response, and instead of 10 years or 5 years, within 3 months they destroy the cells. We showed, and we biopsy showed, recurrent insulitis. It was not rejection. So the disease comes back. That means the immune system is anamnestic. It never forgets its destructive tendency. Can we switch off this immune response? Now, so we started studying if any child comes to Jocelyn with diabetes, we call the brother, sister, start screening, and establish the word pre-diabetes registry. The dream was one day you can prevent by an islet cell specific antigen. Many of you in biology know this famous letter to nature, continuous cultures of few cells secreting antibody of pre-designed specificity by Kohler and Milstein from Cambridge, which 9 years later won the Nobel Prize for the hybridoma technology or monoclonal antibodies. This was the 80s. You should know now monoclonal antibodies have a firm place in clinical medicine. All the medicines ending with the word MAB, M-A-B, you use it in cancer, used for heart attacks, used for osteoporosis. They are one of the most powerful biologicals, and Biocon in Bangalore is one of the leaders in this country. So we were the first one to exploit this technology to develop a series of monoclonal antibodies, 3 years of failure, and one day eureka, you get a whole clones, which I had to christen as human islet 1, 2, 3. And we were characterizing the cellular location, some are intercellular. We had 2 questions. Many of these antigens, are they targets in the autoimmune response? Are they potential candidates for beta cell specific vaccination? Second, why has God given it? Not to be targets for destruction. God it should be doing some good work in the beta cell, the biology and function. These are some of them. HISL19 cell surface. This one reacts only on the alpha cells. These are differentiation antigens. I will just, because Vinay requested me, I Googled a little bit for him. He wanted me to expand more on the basic science and tone down the medical part. I'll share with you some of them. At the time, we had done immunoelectron microscopy and shown this 19. This is my favorite kid. It was located in the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi, and secretory granules. Beside islet cell, this was also present in several other neuroendocrine cells producing peptide and amine hormones. And the goal is to purify and sequence it. We used the immunoaffinity chromatography. I was able to purify 2. It was a 6769 antigen. Other one, 14, was a P120 glycoprotein. Then we want to sequence. I got a NIH grant for the molecular biology of it using this technique of lambda GT immunoselection. This, I will skip the steps. I just got my clones, and sequencing was about to start. The second question we wanted to ask is whether they have a role in any function. In any autoimmune disease, the antigen has a role. In myasthenia gravis, is the acetylcholine receptor. In thyroid, it is the TSH receptor. So in pernicious anemia is the sodium proton exchanger, which makes acid in the stomach. So they have good function. So islets are very hard to come by. They're in the pancreas, they're scattered. There is no organ like kidney, etc. It's a Herculean task to get a bunch of islets. So we were using at the time some parathyroid adenoma cells, and this is one of the in vitro culture. What we showed, we had two antibodies to a glycoprotein 120. They act on different epitopes on the protein. If the 4F2 binds to the parathyroid cell surface, it increases cytosolic calcium and it suppresses the PTH secretion. Whereas binding of other end to an inactive site didn't do anything. So this antigen was involved in crucial aspects of the parathyroid hormone function. So that was the line of work. This is where he mentioned, probably Providence and the Swamijis of Ramakrishna Mission brought me back to India. And the Gurudev gave me a totally different task. His assignment was, let us do something to improve the welfare of children and adults with diabetes in the country. Again, yesterday, I sat through the middle of night to satisfy Vinay Chauhan. I just Googled some of my kids which I had abandoned 30 years ago. I couldn't control. There is a whole bunch of work which has happened which I didn't know. Now, we had shown it's a glycoprotein. Now, it has been assigned as a member of an important family called the granin family, which have a role in polypeptide and protein sorting at the Golgi and the endoplasmic and secretory granule formation. I found something more interesting in a journal in neuroscience yesterday night, 2010. These granins are serving as disease biomarkers. They have translational potential in psychiatric and neurological disorders. It has been part of this family, chromogranins and secretogranin, and my baby has been given another name along with it called secretogranin 14, or secretogranin 4. Neurological and psychiatric disorders where it might have a potential role include amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Alzheimer's, frontotemporal dementia, and schizophrenia. They are trying to measure this antiprotein in the CSF and the blood. They have concluded advances that further elucidate the mechanism of action of granins coupled with improvements in biomarker technology and direct clinical application should increase the translational effectiveness of this family of proteins both in disease diagnosis and drug discovery. Good. Now let me close this nostalgia and come back to our talk. I told you the various steps. The genetic predisposition to type 1 lies in the HLA chromosome 6, the HLA antigen DR3, 4, etc. There are now several genes involved. Through GWAS studies, more than 20 genes have been incriminated. It is very interesting to note what do these genes do? Either they are involved in insulin production, or they are involved in immunity, or protection from beta cell function, and there are some unknown functions. I told you autoimmunity. These are the stages in which finally the islet cells get destroyed. Now the antigens, some of the antigens have been better characterized. You don't have to do immunofluorescence. You have quantitative assays to insulin, glutamic acid, decarboxylase, tyrosine phosphatase, zinc transporter. They are the main ones. This is clinical. I will run through. They are present in newborn, newly diagnosed diabetic. 50 to 90% have these markers. Children have more than, and even adults, some of them have more than 2 or 3 markers, 95%. Now, following our work, there are a lot of studies throughout the world. This disease is very common in Scandinavia. So every child born, they start screening, and see, this is a child, they start checking right from birth. Around the age of 8, the child develops antibodies, and 5 years later develops diabetes. So you need to lock the stable before the horse is gone. The immunoprevention should start when the serology is positive. Now, just for you, this is about 2 years ago, again from Harvard. See, pancreas is a big structure, and islets are scattered like stars in the sky. You can't image it. You can't do an MRI or anything. They're microscopic. Interestingly, visualization of intrapancreatic heterogeneity by nanoparticle accumulation. Using iron ferromoxyl uptake, they have been able to map the inflammation, the patchy inflammation. This is a normal pancreas. This is pancreas from a child with ongoing autoimmune reaction. First time imaging of insulitis. That is the story of type 1 diabetes in brief. Now type 2 diabetes, it's a totally different disease. Here it has been referred to as suicide. That means it is a sort of degeneration, programmed cell death, something like Alzheimer's. Like in Alzheimer's, this is the beta cell from islets from a type 2. It accumulates what is known as islet amyloid polypeptide, and people call it diabetes as the Alzheimer's of the islet. And even there, before the cells die, there is a complicated cascade or death cascade. I will not go through, and scientists are trying to intervene this. The one interesting, probably more challenging, is the story of monogenic diabetes. Both type 1 and type 2 are polygenic disorders. Multiple genes are involved. But particularly the last 6 to 7 years, they have identified rarer forms of diabetes, which is due to mutations in point mutations in one or more genes. And I'll give you a few examples. This is a nice way to find out difference between dysfunction and death. This is one of the most common forms of monogenic diabetes. This is the structure of the sulfonylurea receptor, which I showed you in the beginning. The potassium channel, followed outside is the sulfonylurea receptor. Several point mutation, activating mutations, give rise to what is known as permanent neonatal diabetes mellitus. What happens to these children with one alphabet mistake in God's creation? These healthy kids, between the age of birth to 6 months, they develop very high sugar, 600, 800. If you don't give insulin, they're dead next day. Permanent neonatal diabetes mellitus. And these kids over the last 50 years have been given insulin, and they are now 40, 50, 60 years. They have been shooting themselves. This was discovered, a group from Exeter discovered that many of these cases are due to point mutations in the sulfonylurea receptor. Okay, and they have been taking insulin. So it came in the TV and newspapers, and people start flying to England, and they admitted, and they slowly withdrew insulin, gave this 20 paisa tablet glybenclamide. The diabetes was cured. It became normal. Cured means sugars become normal without injections. This is one of the medical miracles, though rare. And what happens? Normally the channel is closed and there is secretion. Because of an activating mutation, the potassium channel is constitutively open and there is decreased insulin. You give this small molecule hypersulfonylurea, it closes the channel and it is normalized. Here, the beta cells are not dead. They are dysfunctional. It says molecular defect. Take the other example. It is called, that is sulfonylurea mutation. This is mutation in the insulin gene itself. This is the structure of pre-proinsulin, alpha chain, beta chain, C-peptide. Point mutations at any of these will give rise to a type of neonatal diabetes due to insulin mutation. What happens here? This is the normal three-dimensional structure of proinsulin. If you have one mutation, it gives what is known as unfolded protein. Protein cannot fold itself properly in the Golgi, and it accumulates, stacks up, the factory cannot function, and the cells die. So here the beta cell death, these kids need insulin. The tablets don't work. Now, about immortality. The whole story, whether it's type 1 or type 2, can, instead of giving insulin, etc., can we, this is the dream in the 80s, can we make a lot of cells and use it as cell therapy rather than injections? Again, the dream of the 80s remains unfulfilled. I'll just share you a small flashback. In the 1985 Christmas, nobody was in the lab except I'm alone, no family, staying alone. Something happened. Till that time, people had tried to grow human islet cells in culture. Nobody has succeeded. Even till today, nobody can make long-term cell lines, human cell lines. There is a disease, very interesting disease called nesidioblastosis. It is the opposite of neonatal diabetes. That means the opposite mutations. If you have that mutation, the cells don't work. The same gene goes inactivating mutation, the beta cells keep on proliferating. They multiply continuously in this child. And these children develop life-threatening neonatal hypoglycemia. The kids born first few weeks, their sugar falls to 18, 19, unconscious seizures, their brain gets. So the treatment for this opposite disease is pancreatectomy. They take kids, chop the pancreas 90%, and again, like a lizard tail, it grows back, you chop again. So on the Christmas, I got a call from the Boston Children's Hospital that this little black child called Kader Ali, they're chopping the pancreas. The child had this disease. So the surgeon was kind enough when I went to the OT, he gave me most of the pancreas which he had removed. and put back in culture. For the first time, cells grew like tons, petri dishes frozen. So we got the first ever human cell line in the world. But disappointment. As you keep on growing for months, they would de-differentiate. That means they will lose all the good properties of making insulin. They just grow. Okay. So then somebody suggested me meet this lady, Chinese lady in the NIH, who is the world's authority on differentiation. So at that time, we transfected these cells, Cardarelli cells, with temperature sensitive mutant of SV40 virus. At 27 degrees, they multiply. At 30 degrees, they differentiate. So you can have a molecular switch. And okay, 1 second. So that was there. But one thing was clear, cell differentiation and multiplication are incompatible. And God seems to have a last laugh always, even till today. Now, let us come back to what that was 80s. What is the immortality story now? Yes, things have progressed. If you want to keep a beta, the story is different in type 1 and type 2. If you look at type 1, how can you preserve them forever? Americans want to live for 141 years. I think Japanese 121. So this is part of the quest. You can attack the immunity, suppress it. You can help the beta cells to regenerate faster, or you can protect the beta cell mass. Now, one word about the environment. I told you genes are not enough. Something should trigger. There are several. Two things. Cow's milk, early introduction has been thought of as a culprit, and avoiding breastfeeding has been thought of as a culprit. This little interesting clinical story. This again from Scandinavia, which has the world highest prevalence of type 1. Kids were born, and the mother breastfed, and half of them were weaned to conventional cow's milk formula. But the other half, they gave hydrolysate, casein hydrolysate, and they followed the children for antibodies. Those kids, and you gave this casein hydrolysate for only the first 6 to 8 months after weaning. Later you can give whatever you want. So avoiding exposure to cow's milk during this window of time for the first 6 to 8 months of life, their autoimmunity is less, the antibody is less, and their diabetes gets much less prevalence. One example is where environmental manipulations worked. Now regarding immunotherapy, the dream has been completely successful in animal models. Even in early 90s, type 1 diabetes has been completely prevented or cured by simple techniques. You have glutamic acid decarboxylase. Give 3 injections IV or 1 injection into the thymus, their mouse, NOD mouse, never develops type 1 diabetes. So this, though it has been achieved in animals, humans after 3 decades still is an enigma. They try to prevent this. Primary prevention before autoimmunity develops. Secondary, when autoimmunity has already started. Intervention means when the child has developed clinical diabetes. They do at all levels. I'm only showing one little experiment. In this study, they took children who are not diabetic, who had antibody positive and healthy, playing in the school. They were destined to develop diabetes, pre-diabetic. They gave them, like your polio vaccine, insulin to drink. Now insulin gets chewed, any polypeptide, oral insulin. And what they found was, if you had, to start with, you had high titers of insulin autoantibodies, they could delay the development of diabetes by 10 years. The child, instead of developing at 6, developed at 16. It is a major discovery. So you can manipulate the immune system. They are trying various combinations. This is the battlefield, how the beta cells, Kurukshetra, complicated, don't know what happens. Now let me move to field much closer to you. Artificial pancreas and artificial beta cells. Anybody who treats insulin, there is a fundamental dictum. The B cells are gone or beta cells are dysfunctional. The doctor, the patient, and the insulin pump have to think and behave like a pancreas. Physiology. Let us come back to this. Has engineers, scientists been able to reproduce this? The answer is a good yes. Okay, I told you the beta cell has 3 parts. It is the glucose sensor, the insulin pump, and the beta cell brain. I tell you, it's common when I talk to patients. This is these 2, sensor and insulin pump, discovered in America, made in China or Korea, used all over the world. But something in between is made in Hosur Road, either Wipro or Infosys. This is a software which drives that is makes in India, the middle one. So the insulin pump has gone through several stages over 30 years. Now it is called open loop. Closed loop means totally like a pacemaker. This is the final studies on the insulin artificial pancreas. Now the insulin pump, instead of using insulin decreases blood glucose from the beta cell, it made in the beta cell. The alpha cells make the hormone glucagon, which increases the blood glucose. It's a balance. So this is a bihormonal pump. The pump has both insulin and glucagon. You can program it. You can set the blood glucose level to 5 millimoles, that is about 90. This is blue is the delivery of insulin, green is the glucagon. So it's automatically, when the glucose drops to around 90, insulin shuts up and you get a bolus of glucose and the bolus of glucagon, and the sugar becomes normal. The whole profile is within 90 to 120. This is best anybody can achieve. The story is an engineer. He is Edward Damiano. Is a electrical engineer or biomedical from Boston University. And this is his son David, who has type 1 diabetes. And every morning he promises his son, I'll get you a cure. And this is the simplified version. You have two pumps, insulin and glucagon pump. And first, this the glucose sensor measures your glucose, transmits to the iPhone. The iPhone tells how much to give, and they are delivered. And you can get the blood sugar within the normal range. The blue is the insulin, and the red is the glucagon based on the sugar. And you can get your glucose profiles. This has been used. The patients are sent home. It looks complicated. Do not worry about it. It has become much simple. Okay, and it's supposed to become simple. And Edward, the son is going to college, and it is supposed to hit the market in a year or two. Okay. Now, I told you the old story about making the beta cells immortal. From artificial pancreas, which is an engineering deal, it is the artificial beta cells. Now, you can prepare beta cells from replicating pre-existing beta cells or differentiation from ductal epithelium or acinar cells. There is another method called transdifferentiation. You can take a liver cell or a skin cell from the patient, put the right genes and the transcription factors, and finally from the embryonic stem cells, a little progress. Starting from human embryonic stem cells, scientists have carried the cells to the various steps progenitors with various growth factors and expression of transcription factors. You ultimately get an alpha cell and finally a beta cell from embryonic stem cells, and they start making insulin. This is again the story of another professor from Harvard, Douglas Melton. He has two kids. Both the kids have type 1 diabetes. And again, every morning he promises the kids, I think they might have grown up, that he will get them a cure. This image shows human stem cell derived beta cells that have formed islet-like clusters in the mouse. The cells were transplanted to the kidney capsule of diabetic mice, and 2 weeks later they differentiate and they start making insulin, and the diabetes is cured in this mouse. Now, that is a positive thing. But again, if you make artificial beta cells, it is supposed to become an outpatient procedure. Patients come to the outpatient, they do a mini laparotomy, give an injection. The whole islets, if you put in a syringe, pancreas is 10 inch. The entire 2 million islets are 1 ml or 2 ml in a syringe. So you have it's outpatient, inject into your mesenteric vein, they sit in the liver and do their function. But if you have put it in a type 1 diabetic, the immune system is going to kill them again. So you have to encapsulate them so that the antibodies and the lymphocyte don't enter, but the glucose comes in and the insulin grows out. This is alginate capsules. Lastly, in this whole scheme of things, God versus man. I want to, Professor Krishnaswamy is also from Boston. I wanted to share another story from Boston. This was told to me by the Swamijis of the Ramakrishna Mission. Many of you might have heard of him, a story of a physician scientist. You have probably never heard of Yallapragada Subbarao, yet because he lived, you may be alive and well today. Because he lived, you may live longer. He transformed life and transformed science, changed science. What is this story? He was one of those rare people who made several contributions, yet was not honored with a Nobel Prize or the equivalents. He was born in Andhra Pradesh from a poor family. He married a little affluent girl, so that he could fund his medical education. He was not interested in medicine. He wanted to become a monk of the Ramakrishna order. Mother forced him. So the Swamiji is told, go and become a doctor as per your mother, then come and serve. And the same family, he got married, funded his education. The father-in-law funded his trip to go to US also. He got a scholarship, never came back, abandoned his wife, stayed there, and he died at the age of about 52 or so. And some of the works initiated by, and he donated everything to a church in New York. Some of the works initiated by Subbarao had to be rediscovered for the simple reason that his partner Fiske did not allow contribution to earn name and fame out of jealousy. This was told by Professor George Hutchings when he won the Nobel Prize in Physiology 40 years after death of Subbarao. This statement was made. At Harvard, Boston, US, living in poverty, he managed to work in 3 or 4 jobs in ships, including cleaning toilets as a medical porter in Brigham and Women's Hospital. A foreigner, a reclusive, nocturnal, heavy-accented vegetarian who lived in one apartment downtown, befriended only by other nocturnal recluses. This is the famous book on cancer. What is his credit? Estimation of phosphorus in body fluids is his credit. This is Fiske-Subbarao reaction. It was actually a Subbarao reaction. Adenosine triphosphate and phosphocreatine. Many more antibiotic after penicillin and streptomycin. You should know the first tetracycline is named as subamycin. And he discovered folic acid, teroyl glutamic acid. Once he discovered folic acid, understanding its importance in pyrimidine metabolism and nucleic acid turnover, he prepared an antagonist, folic acid antifolate. Methotrexate is the first cancer chemotherapeutic agent. And his student Sidney Farber got the Nobel Prize for this discovery of methotrexate. Hetrazon for filariasis, the tetracycline, INH for tuberculosis. The first work was in Harvard, later as the director of a Lederle Labs. He is one of the most eminent minds. There is a bust in US in the Lederle Labs. It carries this saying. This is his final message to all of us. Science can only prolong life, religion deepens it. Now, it is not God versus man, it is the human spirit. Now, let me close. I started you with the story of Shivananja. Let me share the story of Apurva. Now, a lot of my members of our team here, after I came back from to US, 7 years, I continued this work, struggled in AIIMS. The science were rudimentary, DST was chaotic, nothing, beg, borrow, stole, and trained about 6 PhD students. All of them went to US, about 25 doctors. So I left the AIIMS and came back to Bangalore to my parents. So now our team takes care of beta cells, but those not in the petri dish, but in flesh and blood. And this is the story of Apurva, bright story and determination against all odds. This is a 10-year diabetes, type 1 diabetes and social deprivation in a 10-year girl. In March, a 10-year girl was referred from Bowring Hospital to our Disha program for total diabetes care. A compassionate medical student donated $250. She gave it to the auto rickshaw driver and told them, take them to JP Nagar, there is some place you may get some help. The first question we ask these children when you come to the clinic, what do you want to become when you grow up in Kannada? The girl said straight, doctor. Why do you want to become? I want to protect everyone. She was on insulin. Between the 2 years, she was running between hospitals, unconscious several times. She didn't know what was blood glucose testing. Sadly, few months earlier, father murdered her mother and is in jail. Mother gone, father jail. Now a helpless grandmother takes care. She is okay. Now, what is the diagnosis? She doesn't have type 1. She has several other diseases. Extreme poverty, family illiteracy, broken, destroyed family. What is the strengths? Total innocence, most incompassionate, highly motivated, bright and intelligent. So she was enrolled in our program. We have to teach the family. Family is only the child. Grandmother doesn't know. She got insulin. She made, supporting her education. She made our hospital home for about 2 weeks. During this period, she was running around, but more importantly, she would sit around. If one of you came, you will see she sits next to you, teaches you how to take care of insulin, how to take care of it. Silently, without appointment, she became a health ambassador to the people during those 2 weeks. The goal is to see whether we can help children like Apurva reach the stars. And we have a project called Giving Tree, where insulin is not enough. They need this. People become friends, and and we also try to help the family members, mothers, etc., to become health workers, earn a little bit of money. Apart from taking care of the child, we provide them this. They screen the villagers and refer them. And this is one of the famous barefoot doctors. She really deserves at least a Padma Shri. She takes care of about 3,000-4,000 people in the villages around Ramanagara. Her niece is type 1. And thank you very much for the patient here.
You can have some questions. Yeah.
Please. What is stopping from finding the cure? It's a good point. See, they have identified a series of antigens. And if you do, it cures there are animal models. There is one model called the NOD mouse, non-obese diabetic mouse from Japan, now all over the world. The mice develop diabetes after, say, I think 3 or 6 months. You immunize, they don't develop. It has not worked. They have tried GAD vaccines, very minimal effect. The only positive study, insulin is also an autoantigen. So only by giving, see, even type 1 is a heterogeneous disease. There are 5-6 markers. I think for every 5 marker known, there may be another 50 which we do not know. So those children who have high titer antibodies, if you immunize, so you have to tailor make the vaccines. One new vaccine may not work. Only those children who had high titer insulin antibodies, it delayed the diabetes for about 10 years. That means it suppressed the autoimmune reaction. I think I wrote in the introduction that insulin is a Nobelogenic enzyme. Do you know who have got it? The first Nobel Prize went to Banting and Best. Banting was a failed orthopedic surgeon, not a scientist. Best was a medical student who was going to go on leave with his girlfriend, and the guy didn't work, so professor forced him, you stay in the lab in the summer, and they discovered insulin purification. Serendipitously, they got the Nobel Prize. Before 1921, the kids would die. There was no treatment in a week or two. So first Nobel Prize went to Banting and Best for insulin. The second, the amino acid sequence went to into Sanger. The number 2, the DNA sequencing went to Sanger. Sanger got 2 Nobel Prizes. Dorothy Hodgkin got for X-ray crystallography of insulin. Then the receptor, there was a fight between insulin receptor and LDL receptor. Insulin receptor lost the race, LDL receptor got it. There's another story. One doctor got Nobel Prize for discovery of vitamin B12. That Nobel Prize is also because of insulin. The doctor, I forget his name, who got the Nobel Prize for B12, developed type 1 diabetes in the pre-insulin era. He was dying at Harvard. So he got insulin, because of insulin lived, then he became a scientist and he got the Nobel Prize. There are one or more. So the artificial pancreas may get a Nobel Prize, the immunity may get a Nobel Prize, it may be a group, but no other molecule, no other disease has won so much. I forgot a very important one. All your immunoassay, Rosalind Yalow and Burson, they got the Nobel Prize. No, Rosalind Yalow was a physicist. Burson was a doctor. Their combination, the radioimmunoassay of insulin, is the mother of all immunoassays. That went to Nobel Prize. So a few more, and I think IISc should take the lead. Ours is a great country, great people. And having met people like Navakant, I knew it is a star-studded place. People have gone, acquired knowledge, and come here. When I just glanced at your website, each one of the teachers are great human beings, and I think they will make our Prime Minister proud. He used the word brain deposit, not a brain drain. Deposit, flourish, come back. But I think it's a great country, but science is growing, but we have a long way to go. And again, thank you very much for this atmosphere. I will take any questions which is relevant. Please, please. Yeah. He is asking prevention or postponement of type 1. Type 2. You have understood type 2 and type 1 scientists have understood more. Type 2 still a hard nut to crack, numerous genes. Type 1 is 50% genetic, 50% environment. Type 2 is strongly genetic. Okay, in twins, 95% have concordance, both have diabetes. The environmental factors are physical inactivity and overweight and stress, mental stress. So you cannot alter your genes. So the answer to the story is, don't push your children to only IITs and high grades, allow them to play in the school. And number 2, don't give them all the junk you get, give them the Indian grandmother's diet and keep them little peaceful. So physical activity, ideal body weight, and sthita pragna samatvam, be peaceful. Otherwise nothing can be changed. It's a tough disease to crack. But with the monogenic diabetes, the genes which they have identified in monogenic, they are contributing mildly to type 2 diabetes. The severe forms come as monogenic. The milder forms may come as type 2, but no solution. It's only pharmacotherapy. One thing has happened is scientifically, if you know a genetic defect, you have heard of the word pharmacogenomics and personalized medicine. Now, if you come to me as a diabetic, I'll give you one drug, then second drug, then third drug, and trial and error. What I understand the term personalized medicine is, the baby is born, you will have the DNA sequence in a chip, in the card. The baby, when you take home, you get a card. It will tell this kid will develop 42 years diabetes, 62 years Parkinson. If he develops, this is the best drug. So it will be tailored. That is the dream of personalized medicine. You predict what drug may work, what side effects you may develop, what disease you may develop. Please.
I have a quick question. It might be naive. You said in between that there have been cures that have worked in mice and animals.
Yes.
It has not worked in human beings.
Absolutely. To a practical extent. Okay.
Is there a difference in the body temperature of mice and human beings?
Not really. Not that I know. But I think the immune system may not be identical. And I feel man doesn't know all the pieces of the puzzle. I think we know what we understand, what our experiments have showed. It's a big disappointment in the field. There is an organization called Juvenile Diabetes Foundation International. It is a foundation run by mothers and fathers of diabetes. So many people, the film actor Mary Tyler Moore, the guy who owns the MGM, if a rich man's son or a child develops diabetes in America, they donate 90% of their wealth to find a cure for diabetes. So a lot of money has gone. Juvenile Diabetes Foundation spent billions over the last 3 decades to find a cure. They have been disappointed. Now all the funding of juvenile diabetes is going to engineers now. They have told, if you can't find a biological solution, we will not waste any more. Now their main funding goes to the artificial pancreas project. They are not funding biologists now. They want engineers to. So bottom line, biological cure has eluded. But still there is ray of hope.
Because a few slides before you said this, you said a temperature change of about 5 degrees makes a big difference to the red cells.
Yeah, you are very right. You are very right. So that's slightly a difference. The temperature I don't know. That story of SV40 mutant is, a differentiated cell doesn't multiply, it does its job. When you start multiplying, it doesn't do its job. This lady had a mutant of the SV40 virus. If you transfect it, at 27 they will grow. And when you want it to make insulin, you change the incubator to 30, it will start making insulin. So we had a switch, but that line also has been, it's an old line. Now the science has progressed. It could be. No, nobody has looked into it, why it has worked in animals, not in humans, any temperature difference, really I don't know. And one more thing, there are 2 animal models, NOD mice and BB Vista rat. None of them are 100% identical to human disease. They develop diabetes, they are autoimmune, but there are differences. For example, the main NOD mouse, it doesn't develop these major autoantibodies. So models are not identical. And do you know, mothers ask me, when you talk to patients, doctor, I keep reading in newspaper that there will be a cure. Any scientist publish a paper in Nature or Science, there will be a New York Times headline and India catches up. They said, is cure going to my child? And they have been disappointed. They are reading about this cure. I tell them one story. See, on 1921, May 24th, there was no cure for diabetes. May 25th, you got a cure. So it may happen anytime. Okay, and you may find in NDTV. So you don't know where, but it's a very area of interest.
For type 2 diabetes, the lifestyle interventions, changes in lifestyle that you're talking about, stress, food, and exercise. Now, are the effects of these things, the correlations with how diabetes progresses or how
Very, very good question.
intervene, are the correlations with biomarkers and their respective weights very well known by now, or is it still
Okay. Okay, let me try to answer. Okay. This perhaps very few times I get a chance to address totally pure scientists. Let us first understand the I will come to, you have understood little more about type 1, there is beta cells dead and gone, complete insulin deficiency. In type 2, you have partial insulin deficiency. Beta cells are there, they are dysfunctional. They make less insulin. They make, instead of making insulin within 30 minutes of your meal, they make it at 2 hours. So in type 1 diabetes, only one defect, complete beta cell deficiency. In type 2, there are 2 defects. Partial insulin deficiency and insulin resistance. That means even though insulin is there, it does not work at the receptor and the post-receptor level. So if you are in regular physical activity, if you maintain ideal body weight, if you keep this cool and tender, the insulin resistance will decrease. The effect is on it will make your own little insulin work better. If a person is 100 kilos, 95 kilos, sugar is 300, you reduce 30 kilos, your diabetes is gone. And okay, 2 brothers around or 2 friends, 25 years. One becomes fat, he will develop diabetes at 32. The other guy will develop at 65. So most of the lifestyle changes impact by reducing insulin resistance and improving the insulin sensitivity. And one more concept is, if you put so much insulin resistance, make the pancreas, if you become fat, pancreas will work harder, it will get exhausted, die earlier. These are all the concepts. Beta cells get fatigue, etc. So as Krishnaswamy was telling, type 2 is a more hard nut to crack. There are no clear-cut markers, but it is the story of insulin resistance. Please.
Most of the time monocausal. I think that is bound to change
Vinay, before that, just two things. I want to, he's my man in this field. And just two small points. This is for the youngsters. Okay, basic science, you are doing wonderful work. Please surround yourself periphery with some physicians. So you, whatever you discover, I'll tell you why you work in a place like a good place, a big place like Stanford or Harvard. You can walk across to MIT. When I wanted lambda GT11, just cross the river, go to walk in MIT, anybody, he may be a Nobel laureate. I'm doing this, will you give me? He gives me the library. And cross-fertilization is extremely crucial. And you should open your mind, no need think out of the box. You'll make multiple discoveries. If you see the CV, my CV says each publication has 10 authors. I cross-fertilize with everybody. You have an idea, share with, talk. So one is that one. Second, interact with more people, cross-fertilize. Second, I do not know whether any one of you know the title of Albert Einstein's biography. There is one biography called The Subtle is the Lord. The title of the biography is Subtle is the Lord. Albert Einstein used to walk from his house 1623 Mercer Street to Princeton, and one physics professor used to walk. They used to chat, and he has written the biography, Abraham Pais. In Subtle is the Lord, he explains when Albert Einstein could not find answers to questions, he would say, sorry, subtle is the Lord, but malicious he is not. And he, like a question asked, why? We don't know. Subtle is the Lord, malicious not. People couldn't understand. So he said, what are you talking? He said, nature hides her secret by means of her essential loftiness, but not by means of ruse or trick. Nature is not tricking you, but it is highly loft. Okay, that was a great, so one day we have to surrender. When the science comes to an end, you have to think of somebody else. Vinay, please. Yes. Yeah. No, the third, you have the glucose sensor, you have the insulin pump and the glucagon pump. But the third component is the algorithm, software.
So my question is on the glucagon pump. Whether it is necessary, because the alpha-sine and liver are intact in type 1. So whether there is a hypo condition, should not they cover up that hypo instead of giving the external glucagon?
See, normally when I or you get hypoglycemia, we make more glucagon. But when type 1 people, after 5 years, your glucagon responsive will be deficient. So I think this glucagon pump is a good physiologic method. It gives a tight balance. You saw that beautiful. The moment it drops, you get a burst. So it happens automatically. I think bihormonal pancreas is more physiologic, because all of us kick glucagon, but people, type 1 diabetes is disease of the beta cells. But over years, the alpha cells become they don't respond to hypoglycemia. So that's, I think it's a good approach.
Any other questions or comments? This is a unique opportunity for you to fire your questions, Dr.
And if any one of you say, so see, though our team is endocrinology diabetes, if any one of you are working on a biological problem, you need a doctor collaborator, give me a call. I'll get you the best one. Okay. There are so much talent in this country. Yes, doctors are busy, but there are throughout the country. So if you want a collaboration in oncology, in HIV, in leukemias, any aspect, just give us a call through Navakant and we'll get you a good team who is working on it. Please. Huh. Yes, yes. So, okay, there are dogs and other animals develop diabetes, but the two models which have been used extensively is NOD mouse, non-obese diabetic mouse from Japan, and BB, they spontaneously develop diabetes. See, in diabetes research, if you want an animal model, you can inject toxins like streptozotocin, and it's a chemical toxin, and you will get diabetes next day or 2 days. They are artificially induced